think. I actually did the count and math the other day because on occasion I know how to count. And I think yesterday we were like 3 days away from the 31-day mark, which is funny because I felt like I'd already hit it, but technically, if I'm not on weekends, it hasn't been a month. That one little dreadlock right there sticking up. Uh, but so yeah, we're creeping up on almost a month every day. Almost a month of daily tea times, not a month every day. In other words, that I possibly know. Hey, from Pennsylvania. Everyone's starting to roll in. Make sure that I turn the live chat on. My family is gone. They left. They left to go get the livestock guardian puppy, and I'm just like, I'm alone during tea time. But they're in reception right now, so my daughter is still moderating. Okay, so I'm gonna make myself some nice comforting tea. I'm always using the silver needle. This is the silver needle white tea, and then I'm gonna do the white nectarine. I've come to the conclusion that this is a comfort flavor for me. I like it any day of the week, but usually when I'm like stressed out or I don't know, feeling any sort of way, I'm like, ooh, I want the silver needle with the white nectarine, and it is so tasty and a nice little thing to give myself. And warm liquids are comforting in general. You don't have to drink like green or white tea or anything like that. Like, actually, what's funny is even just drinking warm water can calm you down. It's crazy. I have dysgraphia. Sometimes I can't make things screw on well. I'm like, ah. Okay. So now we need the hot water. Hey, everyone rolling in. Good morning. Good morning. Today is just going to be a calm tea time, I suspect. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the day ever so slightly cleaning the house and vaguely puppy proofing. We're not prepared for this at all. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes I feel like it's like when you have like your first baby and you're like hyper prepared and everything's just so, but by the time you've had your second, third, whatever, you're like, yeah, baby comes home. I kind of feel that way with dogs and like livestock and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, here they come. Right. Like there's no like hyper preparedness for it. Um, so I just will vaguely clean up things that she might want to chew on or destroy. And then I started writing yesterday. I started like deeply working on that IMO protocol book. So I'm in it now. And once that happens, I'm just there on my computer in my chair, like writing. And then suddenly, I'll probably, if it continues to go that way, I'm hopeful maybe to go to print even by the next couple weeks. It's so crazy, but people would be shocked with some of the stuff. Like when I'm like, okay, it might take me a long time to make a book, but there will be sections where like I made like 80% of the book in like a 2 or 3 week time frame because I'm just hyper focused on it, and I'm like, woo! And then I just have to, edit and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't know, I've tried to work on other books and I feel like I'm kind of not allowed to until I finish that book. It might sound weird. I don't know how to put it any other way, but nothing else takes. I'm like, fine, I have to write this book. And then I can go on to like the 5 other books in my head. So I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it live. And I wrote a bunch yesterday that I think I'm going to rip apart. Sometimes I start writing and I write a whole chunk of stuff, and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't feel right, and then I like sacrifice that amount of writing, and then suddenly it's there, right? And I don't know what that's about. It happens often. It's some sort of weird process in my writing where I like get the stupid shit that I didn't mean to write, or like whatever. I get something like out of my system, and then I'm like, okay, push it aside, and now it can flow. I don't really, anyhow. I don't have a specific process. There's usually lots of tea involved. When I was writing my book, Essentially Deadly: The Unspoken Dangers of Essential Oils, I pretty much lived off of like London fogs. Like that's where like you make Earl Grey and add milk. And so I must have. I mean, I had huge ass, and I would just put that and random like either this is gonna be funny either random lo-fi music from YouTube or the Weather Channel, the free Weather Channel that you get on Samsung TV or whatever. Like I people are like, why the Weather Channel? I'm like, it's background noise. I don't even hear it. On occasion, I'm like, oh, that's crazy if I see some shit on, like a disaster happened or something. But most of the time, it's just on in the background. We'll have like the Weather Channel on for like 10 fucking hours or something like that, but nobody notices it. It's just sound. Um, but I don't know why. I think it's because my dad always watches the Weather Channel, and he always watched the Weather Channel, especially when I was off being a homeless teenager, and I think it just feels familiar. But I'm real up to date on the weather most of the time. Um, Ooh, that is so tasty. I mean, if you've never tried adding fruit to your white teas or even your green teas, I know it's taboo, but don't even listen. It's so tasty. Like, don't deprive yourself of it. It gives such like a subtle sweetness, and it like brings out like the flavors of like summer. Like there's sunshine in this cup. Right? Like, and it's so fantastic and just very but like minerally, but like in a good way, and it's very like you can smell the nectarine. Now I've tried it with peaches. It doesn't work as well as peaches in my opinion. It does work well with blueberries. A little bit of ginger is good too. Um, Someone says green tea and orange peels here today. Yeah, I mean play around. I know that like there's like hardcore like you can be very strict about like how you make your teas, and a lot of people probably gasp because when I'm using like silver needle or like Nilgiri platinum needle, like anything that's like labeled silver or platinum and needle is a very high end tea. Because they're picking it like right when the leaf emerges. It hasn't even unrolled, and so it's a pretty tedious process that they have people picking these, and it's very like. But I love it, and I think that if I can find ways to like increase my experience even further, why not? Right? I'm the one drinking it. um, but also when you hear me slurp, I don't do that because I have bad manners. I do that because it basically like oxygenates the tea across all of your taste buds, and then you taste even more like complexities of the tea that you're drinking. And you don't just have to do it with white, green, or black teas. You can do it, or oolongs or whatever. You can do it with herbal teas too, and it'll just I don't know. It's kind of like how people let like wine air out, kind of, right? They're like doing special things to oxygenate it in some ways. Same thing that you're doing while you're sipping in your teas. It's like it's putting oxygen in there, and it pulls it further across your taste buds, and it just wakes all kinds of things up. Um, but it's just, I don't slurp every time, but lots of times I had somebody be like, you should learn how to drink tea without being obnoxious. I'm like, you should learn how to drink tea. Right? No, but I really enjoy it. It's fantastic. It really is. I look forward to summertime because there's going to be a lot more fruit available. Now it works better, I notice, with dried fruit, and I think that's because the cellular structure of the plant is already broken down, and you can't like. It's kind of like how you can't make tea out of fresh plants. It's kind of more like a broth, um, because there's already water in the plant material, so the water can't penetrate into it, right? And it's just the whole thing. But yes, morning tea almost every day. And I got excited yesterday walking around outside in the rain because it's fully back to being like very obviously spring, not like super warm outside. But um I was sitting there thinking about how nice it'll be like and how exciting the first day I come on here and we're outside. Right? Cuz I'm not going to warn you. It's just going to happen one day, and we'll be outside having tea time, and I really look forward to that. And I look forward to doing that most mornings, probably once it's nice outside, you know, because so you only get so much like not deathly hot times here in high mountain desert of Northeast Oregon during the summertime, and I don't want to like be inside during that time, so y'all are coming outside with me because right it starts like depends on the morning. Sometimes by 10 o'clock it's entirely too hot out already, but definitely by 11, and so I will have to be outside super early to do garden stuff anyways, and then we would just roll right into tea time probably under the linden tree, and then I can like hide like a hobbit, you know, or a mole or something from the heat for the rest of the day, depending on what we have planned, you know. Um, but I'm really excited about the book that I'm working on now. It's either going to just be called I Am Of or I Am Of Protocol. Either way, um, I felt really drawn to like making like a book like in totality that's about like how like every way we are disconnected from the land impacts like our physical and mental well-being, but like you know me, if you've read any of my books, I like to do it by categories. I like to break it down by like sections, and so that's what I'm working on right now, and I also am making it super accessible to anybody, and I'm kind of washing away the spirituality aspects that are so prevalent in like the return to the land type concepts. Not that I'm not spiritual or that there's anything wrong with that, but I really think it stops a lot of people, even from practicing herbalism, because they're made to feel like they have to look, act, speak, believe, you know, dress a certain way when that's just bullshit. You can show up exactly as you are. The land literally gives zero fucks, you know, and so I kind of felt like I needed to make something that like stripped away that like people feel othered and they don't even realize it, or like they're like, well, I don't really align to that, like, and so I just kind of want to talk about it, and like this book is just going to be kind of like, I don't know, feels like an antidote, an antidote to the people who feel shut out. But even like, but it doesn't mean that you can't believe in any way. Like it just means that it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to have somebody's permission. You don't have to have like a qualifier. You don't have to have like, you can just exist as like a human on this planet, you know, in whatever way that looks for you. And so it might seem kind of jumbled in my head, and it is, but it'll, by the end of it, it'll be a thing. Um, you know, and so, but the land doesn't care about any of that stuff, and so I want it to be accessible. But also, sometimes when I see stuff like that, it's like, yeah, we know that if we like lived out in nature 24/7, that we would probably be healthier. But we also live in like reality where like not everybody has access to like land or time or money, and so um for me it's more about like breaking it down into like showing like how the disconnection is hurting us, but then like creating this protocol that like there are different levels of accessibility, like different things you can do. Like you can like go the most extreme and live in a fucking tent on some land if you wanted to, or you could like figure out little things that you're able to do in your home and inner city that would help you, you know, physically recapture some of these things and these impacts that we have lost, because we're not connected to the land, you know. And so I just kind of wanted to make it full spectrum and available to everybody, and there's at least one area where somebody can improve on without having to spend a bunch of money, right? um, Somebody say, where do you get your stuff for tea, or do you dehydrate your own? It's a mixture. I wish I could grow tea plants here. I want to say a majority of tea, like real, like Camellia sinensis. I always say it wrong. Like genuine tea leaves, tea plants. I think maybe at best are grown in Georgia. In the US, I think we don't really have the climate for it, so there's like some experimental stuff going on, so I definitely don't grow my own. I like Young Mountain tea. I like Yunnan sourcing. I like Muai tea. There's a bunch of stuff that I've been jumping around through. I like finding the little obscure ones that nobody really knows about unless you're like 10 pages deep in like a Reddit thread about tea. Right, and they're like, oh, this one, you know. Um, but then this little teapot, I actually got this off of Amazon, and You'll find the link pinned for that in the comment section for the future people. Hey, hi, hello. And then I also like gather huge amounts of herbs. Well, not as much anymore that I used to have to. Now that I'm working on getting help, and a lot of the herbs that I get are contracted through like herbal farms, which support farmers should include herbal farms too. And so I like that though because it allows me to like pace myself and feel less pressure like when I'm out on the land to like get enough to like meet up to like keep up with like everybody's demand, right? Like as a single human. you know and so but yeah, I do most of the herbs that I use that aren't in the actual tea family. I am gathering myself. Are you going to have a readable book of your teas, etc.? I can't do ebooks. My phone is not capable of ebooks. All the books in my shop right now, there's ebook version and in print version. So my tea book, even though it's not tea recipes, it's like how to make teas and infusions and brews and like it's like methods books, right? That one's available in print too. The only one that's not available in print is the record keeping book. It's not really a book, it's more like forms, but you have to print those anyways, and you'd have to print them again and again to be keeping records if you're selling stuff, so it's more about compliance. But that's a PDF, so you wouldn't need an ebook reader for that. You just have to download it and print it, so you would need a printer. Um, but but yeah, I've been really enjoying these tea times and what they've been doing for my brain, and even on the days where I'm like, and this is probably a key part. On the days where I'm like, I don't really want to do tea time today. I'm like, okay, but you're gonna do it because the point was in the beginning to break the habit of avoidance. And I'm finding that usually I'm only feeling that if I've had like a rough morning or like a rough night, right? Which is totally human. We're all like, oh, I don't want to do whatever we're supposed to do today. But by the end of it, I'm always glad that I did. And so it doesn't mean that I should never listen to my body or things like that, right? And if I was genuinely sick, I'm like, sorry, no tea time or something like that, or something really bad enough happened. But it's more about training my nervous system that just because a little something dusted up doesn't mean that I have to like shut down for the rest of the day. Right, and it also trains my nervous system that we might not feel like we want to do something, but damned if we don't typically feel better afterwards, right? Like, we all avoid taking showers when we're depressed, and the irony is a shower would probably help us feel better, right? And so it's kind of the same thing, and I've really been noticing that my decision to go live every day is rippling through my behaviors, right? Almost every day that I've gone live, well, about halfway through, I started doing those, they call them shorts here, but also reels on Instagram, where like in 1 minute, I'm like, oh, if I was, today's question is, I would do this, right? And so suddenly I'm back on track to being present on like Instagram. Suddenly I'm posting 2 things a day to YouTube and 1 video on a weekend, right? Like I'm on top of it, and I don't feel burnt out by it. And it's really interesting that like I don't have I don't know, I'm getting all of my primary work done before 11 in the morning, and then suddenly the rest of the day is free. I have to keep up with like comments specifically on like my Facebook ads that I run to sell like my synergism capsules and stuff. But I'm only checking that like 4 or 5 times a day, right, to keep on top of it. But other than that, like for the most part, I'm done working by like 11 o'clock. And I don't really even consider this work. This is just part of my day now. Like I get to talk and get things out of my brain, right? And give my husband a little bit of a break from the never ending thing that is being married to April. um, and so it is I don't know, it has been very revealing to how when we shift one little thing that it can just ripple through. Like I would have had no idea that just coming on here and having tea with friends for 30 minutes Monday through Friday could change so much for me. And I think it allowed me to see and enact the changes I had already made, because I want to say I was starting to talk about this the other day and before in the past, and I repeat things often because my brain is constantly mulling through them and like evaluating it. But um, I had done all the work to take a ton of work off of me in the apothecary, like getting help making my supplements and all this kind of stuff. But I was still stuck. I was still stuck in believing that I had no time. Right? It still felt like every day, all day, there was no time for anything. When the reality was, even if I was like doing a lot, I wasn't doing much. I was just stuck in this like hyper pattern of like not being able to see the changes that I had made because my nervous system had walked that path for so long. It was rutted and good, right? And everything was the same and nothing was changing. And the act of doing something completely new and novel, like that, I had been thinking about doing tea times and like watching like random videos about like why people go live, every day for a month, what happens to their channel, and none of that really matters to me. So I wasn't really finding what I was looking for. But one day I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go live. We're gonna do it every day for 30 days, and I'm gonna stick to it. And it made such a huge difference. It allowed my brain to see that changes had occurred. It allowed for me to change my patterns. It allowed for me to be like, wow, by 11 o'clock, I'm pretty much done with work for the day, unless it's like a big online work day type. You know what I mean? Like, unless I have to do something specific or whatever. But um, it just helped me shift out of it. It helped my brain discover new pathways and, like, I don't know, it's like I can be done by 11. I'm off of here well before then, but then I'm doing the video and, but it's like I'm done by 11. And then the rest of the day, I just get to be a human and I get to do things like work on my garden or spend time with my family or absolutely nothing. I didn't do shit yesterday. I didn't plant seeds, nothing. I just laid there and bled. Watched some TV, just kind of existed. We're all kind of in that. So my husband and daughter are on their way to Seattle right now to pick up a livestock guardian dog off of an airplane. And so we're all kind of in that pre-anticipatory things are going to be different until tomorrow when they get home, because it's a long drive. They have to stay the night. And so, it's just going to be weird. But today I'm just going to keep myself busy because I know it keeps my brain from thinking about them being gone. And it's fine, but after 18 years of being with somebody, we are definitely meshed together codependent. And what's funny? He was a firefighter for a good long while. And so it was like during the summertime, he would be gone for weeks and months at a time. And I guess you adapt to it, but like, most of the time, he wasn't gone all the time. Like we sold. People were like, What's your husband do?" I'm like, "Oh, we run a shop together. Like he is customer service, right?" And because he's out of town, if you sent an email and you haven't heard back from customer service, he may or may not get some done tonight. I'm not gonna push him to do it. He probably won't get any done tomorrow because he'll be driving for 5 hours. So probably expect a solid Thursday reply. But I've been working on. He's been doing pretty good at responding to people most days. But that's what we do. There was one point in time about, I don't know, I guess it's been about 6 years ago. He was working for the city well, he had to drive to a different city where he worked for that city. And he was making livable money, especially back then when money was still money. Right? It was okay. But I was doing the shop and things were going really well, but it was like the shop kept growing and growing and growing, and it was to the point where like he was bringing in like every shop update like garbage bags full of orders to drop off, to the post office. And eventually like he applied for a raise, like a position change, right? And they're supposed to hire from within. And the lady was real mean to him. She's like, well, she didn't even give him an interview, which is totally illegal because he applied within, whatever. But she was so mean to him, and he was so upset about it that I was like, quit your fucking job and help me with the shop. I need help. And it was the best decision we ever made, because with his help, we were able to like, shop updates went huge, right? Like we were able to go from making like I was able to make like 800 things, which is already a lot to do by myself, to like we were making 3,000 things and they were selling out, within 24 hours of opening for a shop update, and like it just snowballed from there, but um it definitely wasn't easy. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they come across me for the first time, and oh, she has this big shop and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, but it took a decade. It took a decade of like intense struggling, borderline divorce. Like um, just really like going through like everything and anything like that you could think possible going wrong. And towards the end, before we moved into this house, you know, we were living in a tent outside of the house because it was falling down where we were. Like there was grass growing through my daughter's bedroom floor. She named it, like it was like we using buckets for bathrooms. And before that, yeah, it was crazy. When we moved in here, we realized that it was the first time in a decade that we had like reliably running water, our toilets that would flush. And that's, I mean, I guess you just get used to it. Like you don't like know any different than like severe poverty. Right, but it was like it was so crazy, like to have two bathrooms. I've never lived in a house with two bathrooms before, so it like blew my mind. There were times when we first moved in here where he'd be like in the bathroom, I'd be like, okay, I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, wait, there's another bathroom, right? And it blew my mind, or like even just being able to flush a toilet. You have no idea how much people take that for granted, and so, but it's and so it really made a difference. And all that to say, it's been a decade, and of probably, well, at least 7 years of it, he's been just working with me in the apothecary and stuff. And so it's weird when he's not here. Like he goes places all the time and does things, but I mean, it's weird when I'm like, he's not going to be here tonight. And I'll be okay. I'll be like, I'll wake up in the morning and then I'll keep myself busy, and then suddenly he will be back, and then nobody sleeps because there's a brand new puppy. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. Now I know we planned it. It's very much so planned. In the working, well, we were waiting for her to even be created and then exist and then be available and then be old enough and then be on our way here. So it's been a long time in the making. But yeah, it'll be a day where I keep myself busy preparing slowly, but also like end up just sitting down. You're like, I'm gonna do all the fucking things today, and then you're like, hold on, let me look at my phone for a minute, and then you don't do anything, But no, my son is still here, and he'll be 21 in a handful of months, which is weird to me. But he's gonna haul a bunch of dirt up for me from the bottom of the property today for potato planting, because those are ready. They're ready to go in the ground, and I'm gonna, well, not in the ground, into the containers. But first step is getting like a huge amount of dirt up here, because I need to fill 55 10-gallon pots. So that's a lot of dirt. And then I'll do like a layer of dirt, and then on the very bottom, and then two potatoes max, and then another layer of dirt, and then I start. I've got like potato specific all natural fertilizer, so I'm gonna layer it. It's gonna be like fertilizer, dirt, fertilizer, dirt, fertilizer, dirt. Just like a sprinkling of it all the way up. I am aiming to grow. I want at least 400 pounds of potatoes. I know that sounds crazy, but you've got to figure. People forget that. Let's assume you can't buy seed potatoes for some reason. You have to have at least 50 pounds set aside if you want to redo what you grow. And so, and if it's a family of four or more, like, you don't realize, if you stop buying potato products and start making your own potato stuff, how fast they go. We're always cooking potatoes with a baked chicken. We make our own french fries. We're making hash browns. I make potato bread. It really gets eaten up. So people don't realize how much food poundage wise they actually eat, and you're like, oh, this 50-pound bag of potatoes will last me forever. I'm like, no, it won't. Not if you're actually like cooking from scratch and stuff. It goes really fast. Same thing with flour. We go through about 50 pounds of flour a month. If I'm really like at peak cooking, because like we make our own like pasta, bread, pastries, you name it. We don't use anything pre-made, and so it really, really, really gets eaten up pretty fast. And I wouldn't even say that I like bake every single day or like cook something with flour every single day. Um, so it just takes more than people realize. I'll see people have like a shelf of food somewhere and be like, oh yeah, that's probably like a 3 month supply. I'm like, that's like a solid 2 weeks if you don't eat lunch. Right? Like it takes far more. There are cool things online if you want to really get into like setting food back type of stuff that'll tell you how much you need and like calculate like how much poundage. But some people typically freak out. But my advice for that is to like not try to be like, okay, in the next month I'm going to be ready for 2 years. Be like, okay, so this month I want to have a week's worth of food set aside. Next month I'd like to see what it's like to have 2 weeks. And then you can slowly build up and use those lists to get you there. And then it's a whole different ballpark if you try gardening. Um, where am I going to store the potatoes? We are in the process of making a pretty unique root cellar. I'm tired, so I don't really want to like. I thought about doing like a Gabion root cellar or like the Paul, what's his name? I don't even the Seps Holzer. I can never say it right. There are all different types that we could make, but I only have the one tractor and I don't have a backhoe. The things I dream about are like owning like miniature backhoes and things like that I could do a lot of work with, but I don't. I have a tractor, it has a bucket on it, but it's not the same as a backhoe digging attachment. So my plan is to take 55-gallon food grade barrels and put ventilation on each side of them so they each have their own individual ventilation. But then I'm going to get barrel racks, which are these racks that are meant to hold very heavy, full 55-gallon barrels. And I'm getting plastic ones because they will never rot because they're plastic, right? And so you put a layer of barrels down, you bury it, you put another layer of barrels, you bury it, and then in front of it, we're going to build a highly insulated like entryway that's only like 2 feet 3 feet wide. It's just enough that you walk into the door, close it behind you, and then you can open up the individual barrels, right? And I really like that concept because what people don't realize, because we haven't used root cellars in our generation, or not a whole lot of people have, is that you can't store all of the same vegetables often in a root cellar, especially not things like apples, things like cabbage, things like carrots, things like onions. They all have different humidity requirements sometimes, and if you put them together, sometimes when they off gas, another one can make the other one rot faster. Like apples in your root cellar is just a no go, right? Even in your fridge, anywhere near any produce you have, the gas that apples put off, or bananas, but no one's putting bananas in a root cellar, will make it go off faster. But if I have a barrel for potatoes, onions, carrots, cabbage, apples, whatever I want, and I have individual ventilation systems set up on the barrel, I can adjust for humidity and stop them from having the gases around each other. And so that is what I'm doing. That is the plan anyhow. And when I'm burying barrels, the the barrel holder itself becomes the protection from the weight of the soil in the barrel so they don't smash in. So in case somebody thought I hadn't thought of that, I did. um, but yeah, people ask me about my flour. I used to get from a local mill here because they don't enrich or add bromide or anything like that to their flour. But the guy, I know everything costs more right now. I understand that concept of inflation, and the more gas and diesel cost, the more food costs because farmers have to run equipment. I grew up in wheat country. I deeply understand that. But that guy was doing more than paying for it. He went from like you could get like a 50-pound bag of his flour for like $45, which was pretty expensive. If you bought in bulk, you could get it down to like $25 for a a 50-pound bag. Now he's charging $85 for a 20-pound bag of flour. And I'm like, no, my guy. And he won't sell in bulk anymore, which tells me that he has no desire to make it easier on people. And because he won't sell in bulk, he just wants you to pay the max amount. And so I just started getting the unriched, all that type of stuff from Azure Standard because I don't have to pay shipping, right? Because I do like the monthly Azure Standard drop in my area, and we're in Oregon, so I also can get like produce and stuff from them without it showing up rotten. But but yeah, so but and then when I get the flour, I have little, well, I have two phases of that. I have like a food container that opens up. It looks like a dog food container. They're probably the same thing, just a different sticker on it, right? That I keep full in my kitchen for cooking with. And in the meantime, I keep the other flour in like 5-gallon pails with gamma lids on them so I can easily just open it and dump it into the thing as I'm using it, you know? But what's funny is I always see people talk about prepping and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't even like, it's just because where we live, most people don't live right next to a grocery store. It's like you've got to drive like 30 minutes in one direction, and oftentimes, if it's wintertime, the weather is too bad or what have you. So it's like you did one big grocery trip, right? You bought in bulk because for one, it was cheaper. You didn't spend as much gas, and if like weather was bad, you had the food you need. So some people just naturally end up having to be that way. And I started doing that when I was like 21. And for years, I had nothing but a food stamp card, you know, and I would feed a house of 6 people off of $300 a month with that food stamp card. You know, it'd be a lot harder to do now because the cost of things, but I'm telling you, you have got to learn to shop in bulk and cook from scratch if you are on a very, very limited budget, whether it's your own money or you have a food stamp card, because there in no way, if I was buying like standard food, would that amount of money been enough to feed anybody anything of any sort of quality, you know? And it was always so funny. I'll tell this one last random story, then I'll jump off. It was always so funny because, like, when you'd be somewhere buying bulk at like a nicer store or like a health food store and you used your food stamp card, you'd get dirty looks, right? Like they'd almost be angry at you that you weren't buying junk food. But if you were buying junk food, they'll also give you dirty looks. But then I also discovered when I finally was able to take myself off of disability and get off of food stamp cards many, many years ago, once I started a business here, um, that when you are able to pay with a normal card or with cash, you get the same ass dirty looks now. And I'm like, shit, you can't win for lose. You know, it's like, how dare you buy decent food with the food stamp card, and or how dare you be able to afford to buy that type of food with money. Like, why aren't you on a food stamp card? So it's like you can't win for lose in like our current reality. And there's nothing that won't upset somebody. I swear to God, I could be like, I really love the color blue, and they'd be like, you piece of shit, right? Like, there's somebody that will get angry about it, you know? And it's just crazy, you know? And so, I don't know, for me, like, food is a big deal. I don't, like I know like deep starvation, and like I have a lot of like food and a resource based trauma from like being like a homeless kid, but also like on a cultural level. And so food is very important to me, and I try, you know, I can only survive cancer so many times, so I try not to eat processed food. And I definitely get dirty looks in the store if I'm buying, you know, like nicer type stuff. But what they don't see is that we don't eat out. I don't get nails done. I don't do any of the things. I don't have like I don't drink coffee. I don't get, you know, I'm not spending money on anything besides food. Right? Like and even like even the clothes I buy, even the dress, you know, it's either secondhand or like something that I think looks nice but is relatively cheap on Amazon. And then I learned that I could use it for a business deduction, because if you like this dress, I have it linked, and if you buy it, I earn like 45 cents or something like that, but then I have to pay taxes on it. So therefore it's a business deduction. I don't know. I don't have a lot of subscriptions to things. I decide what my priority is, and for me it's like the ability to buy food. But it's harder these days. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's fucking crazy going to the grocery store and like having like a bag of food that is $100, and it's not even fancy stuff. But we live in a food desert, so prices here were already really bad before 2020 hit. Like, you want to see what it is to buy groceries, like in Alaska, like far up in the remote islands, you can also just go to remote parts of Oregon. It's like the same cost. It's crazy. One time, like a year or so ago in the grocery store, there were like 7 pre-cooked medium-sized shrimp in one of those meat packets for $15. And I was like, oh my God. And so it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I order a lot of my food from Missouri Standard, so we just get a big drop, and then we are lucky in the way, or well, we work our ass off in the way to raise most of our meat, because we happen to have the land to do it. So it's literally cheaper for me to like let a cow keep my pasture down and then fill my freezer with meat than it is to go and buy meat. But you can also find like meat buying clubs where like a bunch of people throw in and like split a cow or a pig or a bunch of chickens off of a farmer. There are a lot of ways to do it. But anyhow, thank you for letting me jabber extra a little bit long today. I got 10 minutes out of me. If you'd like to support my capacity to buy overpriced groceries, keep a roof over my head, teach freely, just be a human here with you, consider becoming a member. It's just a way to throw me a couple bucks a month. There's nothing hidden behind the paywall. You do get early access to videos if I upload them early. If you can't afford to do that, don't worry. These videos always come out on the weekend anyway, so it's not a paywall to knowledge. It's just a little time wall, but you'll get it. You could also follow the link in my bio or in the pinned comment section once this is posted, to my shop. I make all kinds of things like synergism capsules. I've got tons of books. I've got deodorant that's amazing. I've got mouth mud. I've got all kinds of stuff going on in there. Every time you call something home from the shop, it directly supports my capacity to teach freely. And if you haven't yet, make sure to use the code TEATIME, TEATIME, to save 10% off of your first order, or just if you've never used that code before. And if you can't do any of those things, or even if you can, I'm super grateful if you would like, comment, turn on notifications, subscribe, and make sure that you share. Sharing is super important because it helps get this information out there to other people, helps them realize that they're smart enough to do this. It tells the algorithm that I'm not a piece of shit. And that I'm worth having, my work shown to other people type of situation. That stuff really helps. Just like hitting the like button up here when you're watching a live, it really helps push this out and show other people. It's all metrics and stuff like that. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see everybody tomorrow morning. Bye, folks.